Welcome to this edition of the SAU Report. I'm Jennifer Stacy.
And I'm Kathleen Langston.
Today on our Media Roundtable, our guests are Shawna Eckwood and Larnelle Sinegal. Thank you for joining us.
So Shawna, when it comes to a news program, what do you think is the most important? The editing, the videography, or perhaps the anchors?
I think the thing that's most important would be the anchors, because as a broadcast journalism student, I look at how they present themselves, how they dress, how they carry themselves, how they talk. But also, the behind the camera work is a big and major role. So it's also editing also.
That's true.
Larnelle, what news programs do you prefer to watch?
Me personally, I'm not big on the generic news show. I like sports news, ESPN, Fox News Sports, things like that. But if I had to watch a news show, I like to watch a local news show, because I like to know what's going on around me. Is national news, world news, that's fine. But I want to know what's going on in my surrounding area. Local news, if I watch local news before I watch world news or national news or something like that.
Yeah, I know how that is. All right, Shawna, do you think a story should be aired, even if they're not going to have enough time to really go through everything and tell the entire story? Should they still air it and just give bits and pieces, or should they scrap it maybe?
If it's a very important if it's a very important story, I think that they should make time for it, especially if they know that everybody's going to want to know the information. But if they don't feel like they have enough time, they shouldn't show bits and pieces, because you want to get the full story and know exactly what's going on. You don't want to get half of the story and think that it's one thing, and then the next day they come back with the same story and it's totally different. So I think they should show, if it's that important, should show it earlier in the news, in the show, instead of just showing it bits and pieces of it.
What about you, Larnelle?
Yeah, even if you don't have enough time to show the whole thing, you should make time to do a follow-up. If we'll show this part first, and later on, if it's the evening news, we'll show this part in the evening news, and the night news we'll come back and finish the story. If it's an important story, I believe you need to get it out there, and no matter how much time you have for it, you need to try to make time to put it out there.
Sort of like stay tuned for more details later.
Yeah, something like that, like dealing with the weather. So if it's something dealing with the weather where we don't have time to put it all on this fragment of the show, but we're going to come back and stay tuned, or tune in at the 10 o'clock news or something like that, and we'll tell you, more details about it.
Shawna, what do you think is more important, the news or the anchor's appearance? Do you think people pay more attention to what the anchor is saying or what they look like?
I think that it depends on what type of person you are. If, like for myself, like I said with Kathleen's question, I do look a lot at the anchors and how they carry themselves, how they dress. Their appearance is a major issue for me. But also with people who are just wanting to know the news, they're gonna, want to listen to see what they have to say, because if they're nice looking and they carry themselves nice, but they can't really give you the news like they're supposed to give it to you, then you're not gonna want to watch them anymore, no matter how good they look. And some people also just look at the news for the weather, and sometimes, depending on the weather person, that might, have their decision on what channel they watch. But I think it's both play an actual major role. And,
I'm like Shawna in that we have to face it, that we live in a society where looks are, are important.
That's true.
And even the people who run the news, they know, well, we need to put an attractive person, if we want our ratings to go up, because I'm guilty of it myself. Well, she's cute. I'm gonna go and look at this news. I might not even be paying attention to what's going on in the news. I'm just looking at, well, she's nice looking, and that can also hurt you, because it takes away from the information that you're trying to put across. So, but the anchors are important. How they look, how their appearance, especially how they're dressed.
How they carry themselves.
How they carry themselves. It depends on what type of news show you have. If you're uptight news show, just straight to the facts or anything like that, you have to be dressed for the part. You have nice suit, tie, woman, nice dress or something like that. But if you're doing a more laid back type news show, like I would say the Fox News Sport, things like that, you could have more relaxed shirt, clowning around like that. That's the kind of news I prefer too. Where they're more laid back, they're more conversational in the news, and putting it across there like that.
Do y'all think that maybe sometimes somebody could be too good looking to be on there? Like too much of a a pretty face or
I
something?
think
or where they
sometimes
don't?
if it's too much of a pretty face, if they carry themselves like as in a business type way, and if they as if they know what they're doing and they're taking it seriously. But if it's like I've seen a few like entertainment television shows and some news shows where they have a woman there and she doesn't fit the category as just a
Right.
news anchor, and you know if she doesn't carry herself in a business way, they won't take her seriously. You know, if she's always clowning around, like you know, they might not take her as serious as they would somebody who just looks like a normal, you know, like any other person, and they're taking their job more serious. Just like Larnelle says, it just goes back to the type of news that you like to watch.
That's true. Well, on that same thing, Larnelle, do you think a journalist should give his or her own personal opinions on things, or keep it generic?
It depends on the story you're covering. You know, if you're doing something political or religious or anything like that, from that aspect, no, you should leave your opinions out of it. You should, if you're doing something on a tragedy that happened, a murder case or something like that, just, you know, for example, you should leave your opinions out of it and just stick to facts, because I don't believe you should try to sway people. Your opinions, you know, they do sway people to think a certain way about this or about that. So you should try to report it from a straight down the line, give both sides of the story, just strictly facts. But there are some stories, you know, that, you know, I feel like you can give your opinion on, maybe stories that have a positive uplift about them, or something about the community that's positive going on in the community, or probably negative going on in the community. Something like that. You could give your opinions on some stories.
What do you think about health issues, Larnelle? Do you think certain subjects should be off limits, or I mean, do you think that the media should have, you know, they can cover anything?
Me personally, I feel that you know, if it's something that's endangering my life or my family or friends or something like that, yes, it needs to be put out there. You know, people need to know, especially in a community city, people need to know what's going on. If it's something that can affect them, affect their health, affect their friends or family's health, you need to know, because you need to be able to take precautions about, you know, what's going on. Well, this is going on, they told me this, do I need to go to the doctor now? What do I need to do to prevent, you know, this from happening to me? If it's an epidemic or something like that going on, something's going to spread, but you need to let us know, because we don't want to just be sitting in the house lost to what's going, not knowing what's going on. Well, I'm gonna go outside today, and the news, you know, is some poison in the air. Do I need to? I'm gonna go outside anyway because I'm ignorant. I don't know. The news didn't tell me that the poison is in the air. You know, they need things like that. They need to let us know, because it's very important that we know what's going on when it's concerned with health.
Shawna, do you think that sometimes the news can be too graphic? You know, like if children are watching it, do you think sometimes they're too graphic, or?
I don't think the news is too graphic. I know as far as local news stations where I'm from in Little Rock, they've never been too graphic. In high school, junior high, elementary, I've always had assignments where I had to watch the news or do a news, you know, write a story about something I heard on the news, and I was always able to just sit down and watch it with my parents. I don't know about any other places. I feel that they probably will get more graphic and in the future, but as far as right now, I don't think they are too graphic. I think they've, you know, kept them down to, you know, a minimum, and it's just not too bad.
It's like with the war, for example. You know, they're showing firefights on TV now. Like recently, I believe it was last night, I seen a firefight live. You know, things like that. You know, people may say it's graphic, but I feel like I need to know what's going on over there. I want to know, you know, they're like I'm a part of what's going on over there. I need to know what's going on. Some things, you know, they can leave out, like the pictures with the people they have recently showing the naked photographs of the people, of the prisoners over there. You know, things like that I don't believe need to be shown. But as far as, you know, combat situations, what's going on over there, I like to know what's going on. I like to see that.
Yeah, no kidding. Larnelle, after a bad situation like a house fire or something like that, do you think that there should be a follow-up story of some type, sort of like, I know there was one not too long ago in Shreveport where there was a house fire and then they had a big follow-up about smoke detectors. Do you think they need to do more of that, or?
Yes, I do. I've seen it before myself, you know, a house fire, they'll come up with a follow-up story on smoke detectors, or maybe if it was an accident, you know, they'll wearing your seatbelt or something like that. Yeah, that's a good time. That's a good time and a good place to do it.
Right.
You know, because people might not be aware of, you know, smoke detectors in their house, and they see that this house burnt down on TV, come up with a follow-up story. Well, yeah, I need to go out and make sure my smoke detector is working and things like that. So a follow-up story in those type of situations, they are good.
I agree with Larnelle. Going back to the Columbine, and I noticed that a lot with the news, they would put out questions that you could ask yourself. Well, do you think there are any students at your school that, you know, are thinking about suicide or that are thinking about, you know, harming somebody else? If you do, call this number. If you do, take these precautions and these steps to, you know, make sure nothing happens. And they did that a lot, and I think that was a good aspect of everything.
Shawna, there's usually two sides to every story. Do you think every aspect of a story should be shown, or do you think sometimes they just show one side of the story? Or
I do, because usually the audience who's watching the news station, they usually go by what's on the news. And I think that especially with the murder case, for example, there was a man in Little Rock who killed his newborn baby, and he said it was an accident. He fell down the stairs with her, but on the news they showed it as if he threw her down the stairs. And I think that it would have been a good thing for them to show both aspects, so that, you know, just in case you just wouldn't be, you know, saying, oh, well, he did this, and you know, it's just always good to know both sides of the story. Just always good.
Yeah, that goes back to swaying people to one side or the other. If you're just reporting one side of it, well, you have everybody who's looking at your news thinking, well, yeah, this is happening. This is what happened. Instead of, you know, reporting straight down the middle, giving both sides, both facts, both stories, you know, to let people make their own decisions about what happened and how they feel about it.
Oh, yeah. A while ago you were mentioning something about the military and watching some of that on TV. Do you think sometimes they're a little too forthcoming with information concerning our military, like where they're going and things like that? Or you think they balance it pretty well, or what?
Before looking at the news, and sometimes I do see, well, they have cameras and reporters saying, well, we're going to this area and we're going to attack this area now. You know, I don't believe that type of information should be put out at first, till after the fact, till after the attack has happened, or after the military has done what they were going to do. Don't let everybody know what's going on. You know, things should be confidential to where we're going to hit, what we're going to do when we get there. You know, that should be confidential up until the point that it happens. And after it's done, yeah, you can report, well, the military did this, we went here, but don't give our plans out to everybody. I mean, because look how many people are watching our news. You know, I was looking at the news the other day, and they were showing all the satellites and things that were in Iraq in people's homes. We're not the only ones seeing this. Other people over there are seeing this too. So, I mean, you're broadcasting what we're doing, our plans. You're broadcasting them to the enemy as well. So I believe they can hurt us. Like, you know, the enemy can have one step ahead of us, looking at our news, you know, saying, well, they're going to do this, well, we're going to move because they're coming here. You know, keep that confidential.
That's true. Well, Shawna, do you think sometimes we're shown the same story like way too many times? You know, there's too many repeats of it, or do you think they need to do that for people maybe that are watching at different times?
I think that it depends on the story. Like I was saying, with the whole Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake situation, that was shown too many times, way too many times. And I think they put too much emphasis on that instead of important issues. Now, if it's an important issue with something in the environment, something, you know, with people's health, you know, things with the war, then yeah, that's fine. They can make that an important issue, and they can make sure that they point it out for every news segment. But if they know that it's more than one news channel that's going to be showing the same thing, it could be MTV News, MSN, you know what I'm saying, NBC, all the same news channels are showing the same thing, you get kind of tired of hearing about it, you know, especially if it's not something that pertains to you or you think it's going to help you out.
Synthesize.
Yes.
Larnelle, do you think the media exploits tragedies? Do you think they exploit, like, you know, when there's a fire or if somebody's been killed, do you think they exploit the families or the victims or anything?
From what I've seen, they usually do a pretty good job of, you know, of a murder case or something like that. They don't go up and ask the families questions or things. They might show them on TV crying or something like that, but I mean, that's a part of it, you know. Yeah, somebody died, people's going to cry, a tragedy happened. But as far as them showing interviews or exploiting them, like, well, look at what they're doing now, they're doing this. No, I don't believe they do that too often.
What about when they do like human interest stories on a certain person? Do you think they're exploiting those people, invading their privacy, or do you think that should be allowed?
I believe it's on the person they're doing the story on. If the person gave them permission to do the story, the human interest story, well, yeah, go ahead. But if the person who feels like if they feel it's too private, they don't want that part of their life or their story out there like that, then the news shouldn't be able to report their story.
Well, Shawna, do you think the news just focuses on the bad things that happen, or do you think they do a pretty good job of showing both?
I think that they do a pretty good job of showing both. Like I said, locally with the channels that I look at where I'm from, they show a lot of good aspects and things that are going on in the community, how our city of Little Rock is growing. They're just always showing positive things, as well as, they're going to show the real things. They're going to show the things that, they think that people need to know, as far as the crime and the drugs and just things like that. But I think that they're doing a pretty good job, because nobody always just wants to hear negative, even though they do want to be, up to date and knowing the things that are going on. But we don't want people to be afraid to live where they're living. They want them to be aware, but you don't want them to be afraid. So I think they're doing a pretty good job of that.
Larnelle, do you think a portion of each news program should be set aside for positive stories?
Yeah, yes, I do. Like, going back to what Shawna said, you always need to put in a positive with the negative. You need to set aside, there's so much negativity going on in the world now anyway, with the war. You're always hearing about the war, violence, drugs, crimes that's taking place. You need to have something in your news broadcast that shows the good things that's happening in the world, shows the good things that's happening in your community. Whether it's a fireman who saved a cat out of a tree or something like that. Anything good that's happening in your community, in the world, in your city, you need to put that across.
That's true. Well, even talking about firemen and things like that, Shawna, do you ever pay much attention to the type shots that are used in the news broadcast, when they're showing different things? Or do you just kind of watch the anchors and not really pay attention?
Well, before I became a broadcast journalism major, I did put more emphasis on the appearance they had and the way that they spoke, the way they, just put the news out to people. But now I do pay more attention on the way that, the scenes are shot and the way the camera work is. I think that if you're just a regular person, you probably won't pay that much attention to it unless you're interested in that type of work.
Right.
But just like I said, before I became a broadcast journalism major, I just looked at people and, the women, how they wore their hair, the colors that they wore, things like that.
Yeah, it depends on the person who's watching the news. If you're just trying to get information, you're not going to pay too much attention to what kind of angles the camera has, or the lighting of the video or the footage and things like that. But it depends on the person. Now, me personally, I didn't start paying attention to it until I became a broadcast journalism minor. And now I find myself looking at the news and saying, oh, that's a nice angle he had, or that wasn't a good angle, or the editing was wrong here, or things like that. But the person, if you're just trying to get news, you're not going to really care what kind of angles or footage they have.
That's true.
Larnelle, what do you think about hidden cameras? Do you think, say a news anchor's doing an expose on a crooked mechanic, or, like a car salesman there, do you think hidden cameras should be allowed to go in and show you what's really going on?
Yeah, I believe they should be allowed. I want to know what's taking place behind closed doors, as far as invading people's privacy, their homes or things like that, no. But if a person is doing anything that relates to the public, a restaurant, I want to know if somebody's spitting in my food. Show that to me. Babysitter, if she's taking care of kids, yeah. If she's beating on children, yeah, we need to put a hidden camera in the house and show everybody what's taking place, to let the public be aware of what's going on.
I agree with Larnelle. I get a kick out of watching those shows. They make me laugh. But then again, it also kind of grosses me out, because it's like you can't really trust anybody. You can't just go out and eat anywhere. So it's kind of like, ooh, should I really be doing this, or should I really be going out to eat here? But I get a kick out of it. I laugh all the time when I watch shows like that.
I do too. It is nice when they do have an honest mechanic. It makes me feel better. It really does. Well, Shawna, which news source do you prefer? Do you get your news mainly from newspapers, radio, TV, or like a lot of people now, do you go to the internet?
It just depends. With me living on campus, I don't have computer in my room yet. So I know I like to watch the weather to see what the weather's going to be like the next day, or if I have an assignment. Usually if I have an assignment, I'll go on the internet because it's right there in your face and you can click down if you want to move and you're not worried about how fast they do the production of the, of the news story. Right. So I think overall mostly the internet, because I can always just go to the computer lab and pull up something on Yahoo or pull up something on MSN and just figure out what it is that I need to know, and I can take my time with it. I don't have to worry about missing it or, not being able to get all of it, or, having to be in my room at 10 o'clock or at 5 or at 6 or something like that. So probably the internet. Yeah,
I'm the same way. It depends on what I'm doing. If I'm spending most of my time in the room, I watch the television, see the news programs that come on TV. But I like the internet for the fact that I could go straight to what I want to know. If there's a certain story that I want to read up on or see about, I can go straight to that story, and I don't have to watch the whole news program to wait up until the story comes on TV to watch it. That's why I like the internet. You can go straight to what you want.
Larnelle, I recently stopped my subscription to the newspaper that came to my house, thinking that I would just check it out online. Mm-hmm. But, I'm like most people, I don't have a lot of time to do that. Mm-hmm. Do you think newspapers are going to have a problem with people canceling their subscriptions to look at the newspaper on the internet?
I don't believe they will. I know in my hometown, the newspaper has an online news source you could go to, and you have to subscribe to that. So they're making money either way. If you cancel your subscription to the newspaper, you have to subscribe online to read all the stories. So I know a lot of people are traditional. They like to wake up in the morning and get their paper, look at the paper, drink their coffee, before they go to work. So I don't believe the internet will ever take the newspaper. Yeah, the internet would ever take the place of a newspaper. But they go hand in hand. They do help each other out.
That is true. Well, what about the future of the news? Do either one of y'all think that it's going to get more explicit in the future, or do you think they're going to just continue on? What do you think, Shawna?
Well, earlier Larnelle was saying that with television, they're trying to be more strict with television, and as far as they take sexual activity or, public sexual activity, actually. I think that it probably will. They're probably going to, cut down on being so strict about it because they see how the world is changing. And, even children who watch, film on TV and just all kind of commercials, it's always something sexual all on TV. Right. So I think that they're just going to, kind of stray away from being so strict about it. And I think it'll get more explicit, even with violence and things like that, because like Larnelle said, they want to know what's going on. They want to see how this happened and, where this happened. And I guess with children, you just have to kind of, stray them away from watching TV so much. I think that's what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, if it follows the same path that the rest of the media is following, looking at TV shows, how graphic they are, that's what's going on in the world. So I believe the news will follow that. They will be more explicit, more graphic in their broadcast, because that's what's going on now, and people now are used to it. We become callous to the graphic images we see, and if we're used to it, we're not complaining about it. Why not put it out there? Why not show it?
Larnelle, it's an election year coming up here in November. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the political programs? Do you think that they're covering both sides adequately, or do you not really pay attention to politics?
I don't too much get into political news because, like I say, sometimes I feel like they can sway your opinions or sway your thoughts on people. But if they're reporting just facts, what this person thinks, and not putting their own opinions into it, I believe it could be fair and based for everyone who watches.
I'm like Larnelle. It confuses me sometimes. I'm not really big on politics. I don't really like to hear newscasters say their opinions on different things. And I think sometimes they exploit them too much. They put a lot of their business out, and I just don't like to hear a lot of that. And their families also. They put a lot of their families' business out, especially, when you're dealing with politics and you're running for governor, or when you're running for, president, something like that.
Well, thank you, Larnelle and Shawna, for joining us on this Media Roundtable. And for the SAU Report, I'm Jennifer Stacy.
And I'm Kathleen Langston.